A few months ago, I started seeing the word shadow work everywhere. YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, journal prompts. It seemed like everybody was talking about it, and I chose to ignore it, honestly. And quite honestly, I really just thought it was another internet buzzword. Like one of those concepts that just sounds so deep, dude. Kind of like how suddenly everyone became a narcissist, right? But after a while, I started to think, why has this one idea survived this long if it was really just a buzzword, right? Because usually trends just disappear. This one, by the way, didn't. So naturally, I took it upon myself to actually figure out where it came from. And this is where I found Carl Jung. Oh, side note, I just want to say it's so funny because I actually have a book by this person and I thought it was just funny that it connected. Now back to the point. He was a Swiss psychiatrist and he had a really uncomfortable idea. He believed that every person has a shadow, not a monster, just the parts of you that you learn to hide. So this could be your jealousy or insecurity or your need for validation and attention. And this can also be where your anger and your envy and selfishness could hide. And it's not because those feelings are bad feelings, but because somewhere along the way, you were taught and learned and conditioned to hide it because they weren't seen as acceptable. Think about it. Have you ever been jealous of someone but immediately told yourself that you weren't? Or you judged someone only to later realize that it wasn't actually them, it was something that they did or said that reminded you of something about you. Now, learning psychology, I've actually noticed it's pretty easy to notice other people's behaviors, their patterns, their defense mechanisms, and also just all around possibly getting a read on them, right? But I also notice it's really hard for me to turn that same curiosity back onto myself. So I wanted to dig deeper into that. Sometimes I'll react to something, and other times I'll assume why. But the realization is that most of the time, the emotion underneath wasn't even about the situation at all. So, yeah, what was it really? Maybe it was insecurity. Maybe it was fear. And honestly, I don't even want to say it because this just makes me uncomfortable, right? Why would I even admit that? Well, I'll tell you why right now. Because it's much easier to just blame everyone else, right? But anyway, Jung believed that what we refuse to acknowledge still is inside us. And you know what happens instead? It becomes unconscious. And unconscious doesn't mean it disappeared, it just means now it's hidden. But it's still there. And during this research about shadow work, a lot of people would like to just assume it's about just getting rid of the bad or ugly or unacceptable parts of yourself. But I don't think that's the truth at all. I think it's to the point where we need to realize and recognize that it exists and acknowledge it and accept it. Because honestly, you cannot understand something that you are going to pretend is not there. Then I found something else. Alchemy. Now, most of you hear that word and probably think I'm talking about turning lead into gold, but that's not what I'm talking about here, okay? Historically, yes, they were trying to do this, yes. But Jung actually took this symbolically way differently. He saw it as a metaphor for transformation. So, not physical gold, we'd call it more so psychological gold, okay? And that completely changed the way I look at it. So, what if the lead wasn't metal? What if it was what you've been spending years of your life trying to hide instead? Your fears or your shame, your resentment, your need to always be right, and your need to always be liked. Maybe the goal is not to destroy it, but to understand it. Because once you stop giving it control, you're the one in control now. And I think this is the difference between reacting and responding. You have two options here. You could either immediately act on something that irritates you, or you could step back and get curious about it. Where do you think it came from? What is making you so defensive? Why do you think it bothers you so much? Hey, it might bother you, but it might not bother me. So, where do you think that actually comes from? Think about it. And I agree, those questions are extremely uncomfortable. So, like, you could just answer them to yourself in your head if you, like, feel better doing that. That's what I've been doing. But I think we could all relate to the fact that, like, at one point in our life, we probably did try to be a better person, right? And like I think I've talked about this before actually. Like what does that even mean really? But like for example, me. I've spent the past year trying to learn way more about psychology and human behavior. These are already natural interests, but I'm trying to actually understand them more and not just outward but inward as well. And this is where this whole video idea even came up with. But you know what I also realized and took a step back with? What is it exactly that I'm trying to fix? I mean, why am I trying to fix something or change something so bad anyway? Maybe the whole point is to understand that part instead of constantly trying to fix something, right? Because what if it didn't need to be fixed? Just understood. And no, understanding is not the same thing as reacting off of every impulse you have. No, understanding is when you can sit there and take a step back and recognize where is it coming from and be able to identify it instead of just acting, reacting. And then I ended up falling in love with shadow work anyway because, yes, I think it's about mainly becoming way more honest about you and yourself. Yes, you right there. And also being able to accept these parts of you that you try to ignore or hide so bad. You know what I mean? As long as you understand you and where it came from, you could become curious about this instead of hating yourself or trying to think, oh, I'm not good enough or I need a change or whatever it is. Understand, why do you even feel that way? Actually, where does that come from? And maybe you'll realize maybe it's not even from you. Maybe an outside influenced you that you weren't. I don't think becoming a better person means you have to remove every flaw about you or what you think is a flaw about you. I think it's about becoming more understanding to why they exist in the first place and being able to understand them and not let them control the narrative. You still have a say so at the end of the day. The emotion could still be there, but you do not have to act on it. I promise. There's always an option B. So, in the corniest way possible, maybe becoming whole means you have to accept the light and the dark about you. And maybe this is the closest we'll ever get to turning lead into gold.